Hello and welcome to the Phantom Zone. I am your host Ghost, and we have entered phase 2 of this MCU rewatch. We ended on such a high note with the last movie, The Avengers, that I claim that that movie was not only the best movie of phase 1, but a top 5 MCU movie. If The Avengers was us sailing the highest seas of good content, Iron Man 3 is an anchor chained to our ankles, drowning us. Okay, I'm being a little melodramatic here, but this is such a big dip in quality from just the last movie, even though it made over $1 billion. I don't even think it's bad. I really just think it's aggressively mid. I get the idea of what they were going for, take Tony out of the suit and what is he, but I don't think it comes all together in the end. I don't even think I really have a lot to say about this movie. That's how underwhelming it is. I touched on this in my Iron Man 2 video, but Jon Favreau had such a bad experience directing that movie that he refused to return as director for this one, and you can tell. No shade to Shane Black, but you can just tell that something feels off about this movie. For starters, this is the first MCU movie to not be shot on film. It's shot on digital, and you can tell. The image quality isn't as sharp as the other movies and has a lot of shots that really look flat and dull. Even though a lot of this movie is shot in real locations and sets, this is the first movie in the digitally replace everything with CGI and green screen era that the MCU has spent a lot of time in. This era is the majority of the MCU, but recently they have come back around to shooting on film again, and I think it makes a big difference. From a story perspective, I think the premise is a really good idea. Tony is suffering from anxiety and PTSD after an alien invasion came to destroy New York, and he also carried an active nuclear warhead through a wormhole and saw the endless void of space. That would really have lasting mental impacts on anyone, even someone who's as confident and who's as egocentric as Tony. Tony is also suffering from insomnia, which causes him to not think clearly. He becomes obsessive over creating 30 plus new Iron Man suits within a year. This obsession comes out of fear and security for not only the people he cares about, but for everyone on Earth. He goes so far as to implant devices into his body so it's easier to command each of his suits. This is an upgrade from the receiver bracelets he wore in Avengers that scan his body, truly becoming one with his suits. He really is Iron Man now. However, the way Tony gets over these mental conditions is pretty forced and very misrepresentative of people actually struggling with these issues. After multiple anxiety attacks, some kid on speakerphone literally tells him to just build something to fix your problems. Then Tony just snaps out of it, never addressed again. I just think the way they handled this conflict was deeply upsetting and insensitive to people actually going through these problems. Your mental health isn't something that can just be fixed literally overnight. It is clear to me after rewatching this movie that Marvel has no idea what to do with Pepper Potts. I mentioned in my Iron Man 2 video how her relationship with Tony really took a turn for the worse from the first Iron Man movie. Their relationship seems so argumentative and somewhat hostile in the second movie, and tried to fix it in the end with a forced rooftop kiss. Then in Avengers, they actually seem to enjoy each other's company and feel like equals in the relationship. However, in Iron Man 3, it's the first movie where they're like officially a couple, which I don't think I've ever noticed before, but it's clear they have no idea what to do with her. She's still running Stark Industries, which is great, but there's not really anything for her to do in these movies anymore. She's basically just reduced to a plot device to motivate Tony into saving her and taking down Killian. I also have no idea why she's still with Tony. She finally moves in with him in his Malibu mansion, and just like in Iron Man 2, Tony is still exhibiting erratic behavior. He doesn't sleep, he's short-tempered, and he's working in his shop more than he ever has. Due to this and his implanted sensors, his night terrors trigger these implants, and his suit responds to protect him by starting to attack Pepper. If I were her, this would be enough to traumatize me and to never be around Tony ever again. You know, this and all the other things he has put her through in these movies. But Tony somehow tops this by 1,000. Like I said earlier, part of the reason he's working so much is because he wants to provide a sense of security to himself and the people he cares about. But then he goes on and doxes himself, which allows terrorists to blow up his house, putting Pepper in immediate danger. Even though he somehow manages to save her life in this moment by protecting her with his suit, which I didn't really understand because I thought they were only programmed to Tony.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Give me a suit, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, they're only coded to me.
He very nearly kills Pepper. But it doesn't stop there, because a nerd with a grudge comes back to use Pepper as bait/revenge to get back at Tony, and she gets infected with the extremis virus. You know, that same virus that's been blowing people up and being covered up as Mandarin attacks? Yeah, he's responsible for that. Jumping to the finale for a sec, Tony tries to save her twice on the docks and fails both times. First, he tries to get her out of a pile of scrap metal, and he can't get her out because the pile is too unbalanced. Then Killian ambushes him, shuts his suit down, then in a last effort of desperation, Tony cuts off his arm that's like 1,000,000 degrees, which melts the floor and causes it to cave in and traps Pepper again, this time over a ball of fire. The second time, she's about to fall from her new death trap, and Tony tells her to jump and to trust him. She falls and he doesn't catch her. First off, why would she trust him? I know she's scared and panicked and he's a superhero, but literally none of his behavior in this movie should reinforce the idea that he can help her in any way. Also, it seemed like he's not even that bothered by her death at all. He's immediately joking around and not apologetic whatsoever once he sees that she's survived. Literally not an ounce of change from this man. Pepper Potts should have died in this movie. It would have added a lot more weight to the stakes and would have shown Tony that his actions have consequences and his behavior is directly responsible for her death. That he is not the same man he was and can't protect people in his current mental condition, which would push him to actually reflect, seek proper help, and change his behavior. Having him carry around this guilt for future movies would make him a better superhero and would have had a bigger impact on his decision in Civil War. Plus, let's be honest, there's really nothing left for her to do in these movies anymore. Them settling down in Endgame is nice and all, but she's really reduced to nothing but a few cameos after Iron Man 3. Killian was right.
You really didn't deserve her, Tony.
This is also the first MCU movie where you need to do some homework outside of the solo movies to understand what's happening. A common complaint of current MCU projects, primarily the Marvels, is that you need to keep up with multiple movies and TV shows just to understand what's happening in one movie, as a lot of the stories build off from others in different movies. However, Iron Man 3 is really the first to start this trend. Even Avengers does a good enough job where you don't really need to see all the other movies to know what's happening. They retread enough ground in the story to get everyone up to speed on the important elements of each character so no one is lost. But if you just wanted to watch the Iron Man movies, you'd be lost from the jump between Iron Man 2 to Iron Man 3. You'd be like, why does Tony have anxiety and PTSD? What did I miss? However, one thing I was pleasantly surprised by in this movie on a rewatch was how funny it was. There were a handful of jokes and moments that genuinely made me laugh out loud, some of them by Happy, who is unfortunately in a coma for most of this movie. I thought Ben Kingsley's performance as Trevor, regardless of how you feel about the Mandarin reveal, was really fun, especially since Ben Kingsley is known for being more of a dramatic actor. And I thought this moment in the town was just perfect.
Crazy, huh? Yeah.
RDJ's performance is also really good in this movie. He balances the quick mood swings of sarcasm and anger really well. Overall, I think it's the least entertaining movie out of all the MCU movies I've rewatched so far. I went into this movie really wanting to like it, but I just don't think they committed enough to the interesting choices that they made. With that said, I think that's going to do it for me on this one. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by giving it a like, and let me know in the comments your thoughts on this movie. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.